All right. Hey, everybody. So we're back at it again. This time we're kind of getting away from the, military business leader discussion. We're doing it more so. I'm having a bunch of photographers, local photographers, far away photographers to come and just have a discussion on photography. And, I think that's going to be my running theme now every Friday, where we're just doing, things that I like, casual stuff instead of the normal way of business. So that's what I'm going to do moving forward. So I hope you enjoyed today's discussion, and let's lead into it. All right, and without further ado, let's go ahead and add on the respected panel that I have with me. What's going on, y'all?
How's it going?
Hey.
What's going on?
Howdy. Hey, I really appreciate y'all coming and joining me in the discussion today. All 7 of us, it was a last minute plan and y'all all responded, accordingly. And I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate that. Several of y'all are photographers that I know personally. One is I just met today who called me the Candy Man, but we'll talk about that later. And, let's talk about, I'm going to give y'all each a chance to just kind of tell us who you are and everything like that. Go ahead, Charlie. You can start first.
All right. So currently I'm based out of Germany, running my private business in event and tourism photography. A little bit of photojournalism on the side as well. Born in Philadelphia, raised abroad in Europe. Not much else besides that. Been shooting professionally now for 10 years.
Okay. Verdell?
I'm Verdell. I'm pretty much a rookie at this photography thing, though I have been owning a camera for almost a decade now. So just last few years really starting to get into it, learn it. Outside of that, first and foremost, I try to be the best dad I can be, family man, things of that nature.
Go ahead, Omer.
My name is Amir. I'm based out of Las Vegas. I am a local photographer here. I shoot a lot of pro sports, basketball, hockey, NHL, whatever it is, football, college, weddings, portraits, landscape, freaking whatever my eyes set on and I want to do, that's pretty much what I shoot. But yeah, so I've been here for shooting about 15, 16 years now. So, yeah.
Nice. Go ahead, Jeanette.
So my dad was in the military, but I spent a lot of my time in South Dakota with school. I'm a nurse. That's my primary job. I do believe that that's my calling in life. But photography, I do want to add that into just the type of patients I serve, a lot of the underprivileged. So that's ultimately what I want to do with it. But I've only been doing photography really maybe a year. I'm trying to get over the fear of failure, fear of, disappointment and things like that right now. So.
Go ahead, John.
That's good. Hello, all. Thank you for having me, Otis. I'm John Sines. I'm a professional photographer, currently based in South Padre Island, Texas, formerly San Antonio, Texas. So Otis and I caught back up there in San Antonio, and it's been some fun since then. By training, I've been involved with the arts. I've owned a graphic arts business for over 20 years. Photography was a part of that, but my background is I've got an accounting degree, but been shooting recently digitally for like the past 5 years, and I am a PPA certified professional photographer through them. So people, places, and events are my business side of life science photography, but my personal passion is birds, and there's some story behind that, and as far as why I do that. But happy to be a part of the circle. There's a lot of talent here and a lot of experience, and I'm happy to be a part of this conversation.
All right, and y'all may remember John. He is number 53 on the barber picture that you see.
Hey, it beats on the post office. like number 8 or 9. I don't remember which one you fall in there, Otis, but it's all good.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good. Daryl, go ahead, man.
How you doing? My name is Daryl Edwards, based out of, I shouldn't say based, I'm in San Antonio, born and raised in San Antonio. My primary job is to be an awesome dad and an awesome husband. That's what I take the most serious. But in my spare time, I've been working for Wells Fargo for the last 17 years. So that's what I do, business banking manager there. And when I'm not doing that, in my spare time, I'm a photographer, mainly weddings and events. That's mainly what I do as far as income is considered, as far as it's concerned with income for photography as weddings and events. But if my camera can take a photo of it, I do that. I kind of do it all. Sports, you name it, I do it.
Nice. And of course, myself, I'm Otis. I do sometimes some live streams. Sometimes I do photography, but what I love is my wife and my kids and my family. That's my main thing in life. So I know, I really appreciate y'all coming and just talking, talking photography. Photography encompasses a lot of different things. Would you all agree?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So I've got several topics that I'd like to talk regarding photography, and I would hope to have everyone's point of view in it. So I think we could fit all the different topics, and everyone, take a little time and share their points of view, opinions, or whatever. And of course, if you want to be, if you got a point that you want to kind of interject, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll choose on you, and you go ahead and share your point of view. So we've got about, I would say about 10 topics today that I'd like to talk about regarding photography. Well, the first one I want to kind of jump off with is, why photography? Why did you start photography? What made you jump into this photography thing? And let's see, to go first, let's start with Omer. You go ahead and start with it.
Why? Well, actually, I started off shooting just landscape photography at first, right? So I was just going out, taking pictures of buildings and trees and mountains and rivers and lakes and all kinds of stuff like that. Began to find a true passion for it. And then when I went from that, started taking pictures of people. And then the people I was taking pictures of loved the photos. And then they were like, hey, can I get more of this? Can you charge? So I started turning into a business. And then when I transitioned to a business, that's where I was able to see the entire upside of this particular business and, start making money from it and things like that. But yes, originally it just started out having fun. I still have fun to this day, but the original purpose wasn't to make money. And so whenever I revert back to the having fun part, I always think back of when I was, shooting landscapes and things like that. And now actually I incorporate a lot of my landscape photography in my portrait work. So like when I'm shooting, I'll look for the amazing background when I'm putting a model in front of it, and I'll keep in mind all those same tools that I learned from my landscape photography days, and I'll incorporate that into my portrait photography now. So yeah, but other than that, why, I would just say mainly it was just out of fun. I just wanted to just pick up a camera, start having fun.
Jeanette, I want to hear your point. So we went from a lot of years to freshly starting. Go ahead and share your point, Jeanette.
Yes, so I was a single mom for a long time, and I would get pictures done with my daughters. But I know quality photography, those pictures can cost a lot. I really have a heart for single moms who really, not the ones who have jobs and stuff, but the ones who maybe be in abuse shelters, who have history of domestic violence. I can relate to a lot of that. And so personally, I just had this vision years and years ago that I want to be able to provide them high quality pictures, just to capture a moment that they can look back and in the midst of their trouble, heartache, that they can have this picture of their family. And, in a picture, you can capture whatever you want, at least this moment of happiness and togetherness. Yeah. So that's really what has driven me.
Okay. Charlie.
Yeah. So I didn't really have a choice. I come from an artistic family. Dad was a jazz musician. Mom was a photographer. Dad needed a piano player, and I just wasn't having that. So I ended up going with Mom, to photo shoots and or if she was doing some landscape stuff. I picked up my first camera, Nikon F2A, when I was about 6, 7 years old. And my dream growing up was to get the cover of National Geographic, but unfortunately, life happens. Now I do weddings and Oktoberfest and sports, and so not so much wildlife and nature, but more, people dancing and getting drunk. But it's worked out for the best. I still do my photography, and every once in a while I get to do a passion project when the bills are paid.
Okay. What about you? What about you, John?
I was going to add in there, if for those that don't understand Oktoberfest, that is wildlife.
Oh yeah,
you can attest to that, Charlie, isn't it?
It's
Germany.
It's a mess. It's a hot mess.
I hear you. Verdell, go ahead, jump in.
Why photography? Honestly, well, I'm a rapper by heart. That's my passion, right? Messing with music.
Wait, hold on. Time out,
Redfish, bluefish.
Time out, Verdell. You sound like you're in a cave or something like that, man. You got the crazy. It's all right. Go ahead, share your story.
I'm sorry. I'll try to fix the audio when I can. But however, man, I'm a rapper by heart, right? And me being in the projects, we didn't have a way to get on BET. So I can remember when me and my younger brother first hustled our way into getting a video camera to record our first song that we did to Montel Jordan's Let's Ride instrumental. I'll never forget it. And after that, as I got older, I knew that if I wanted to shoot videos, particularly music videos, I had to get a camera. So that's what led me to doing getting a camera, and then that led me into photography, and here I am now.
Nice. Daryl, go ahead.
Man, my entire life, I was an athlete my whole life. In particular basketball. Played basketball. Went to college, played basketball in college, and that was just my passion. So throughout my early years, it was basketball and karate. So I did karate for about 17 years. Did some Krav Maga, a little jiu-jitsu. But as I got older, my body it just wouldn't take it, man. It just was time to do something different. Because all of that pounding and getting beat on just wasn't cool. So I took a trip to San Francisco, and I bought me a little $99 little flip down camera, and went and took some pictures in San Francisco, and I fell in love with it from that point. And from then on, it's just been photography. So photography had never been on my brain. It had never been on my mind. It was always basketball. It was always something in the ring, boxing, wrestling, fighting, something like that. Not fighting in the streets. So I'm not that guy. But after, my body started talking to me, and then it was time to kind of, settle down, get married, and have children. So I didn't want to come home with black eyes and stuff like that. So I just kind of fell into photography, and I've been in it ever since. So I absolutely love it.
Nice. And John, go ahead, man.
Photography and me kind of go, back to many years. Like, yes, the white beard, it's been a few years, but in my teens, I love the arts. Really, in the 70s and stuff, it was like, I'm going to be an artist. Your parents looking at you like, shut up, fool. You can go get educated and get yourself a real job. You need to be a starving artist, right? And so there's that old adage as far as getting out there and get a real career and make some decent money and stuff and whatnot. And so, I walked the line and I got the accounting degree, but I put myself through my undergraduate program, owning and operating a calligraphy service of graphic arts. And so I've been a part of weddings for over 20 years, and from a different side, not necessarily photography, but the art background was always there. And so developing the eye and whatnot. And I've owned cameras, film for a while, but I realized how crazy expensive it was and had no idea of light, how light worked or any of that. And so, life gets busy, and wives, girlfriends, whatnot. And then this whole digital revolution, and a buddy of mine was was jumping out of a Canon Rebel. God, what was an XSI? And he was buying a full frame. And I'm all like, well, what are you doing with the old stuff, man? And so I thought, wow, that's an opportunity. So I wound up buying that from him. Of course, he was funding a $2,500 camera at the time, $600 now. But anyway, and I'm back in, and so I'm like, now I tease him. Well, I teased him. I hadn't been in touch with him for a while, but I used to tease him. I was like, man, you're my drug dealer. What did you do to me? Man, this camera stuff's crazy expensive. Mm-hmm. And so then I started, photographing birds and realizing what's involved there. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess I'm going to have to start photographing people, places, and different things if I'm going to justify all this money I got piling into camera gear. So another business is born. I go from stylish addressing to life signs, and so shooting people, places, and events justify the thousands of dollars that I have tied up just to go chase crazy birds. So
I got you.
That's where I'm at. Still trying to figure out how to make money shooting birds, but people, places, and events are where it's at right now. So, down south, I guess my gig is trying to do more real estate. So that's another part of my life that I was involved in. I can relate to you over at Wells Fargo. I don't know what part of the business you're in there, but I was doing mortgages for a long time and solving problems and just have good people skills. And so. Photography is very much a part of that. You've got to have great people skills, particularly if you're doing portraits and stuff like that or weddings. I know I'm in a circle of people here with wedding skills. So anyway, I'll hush up.
Hey, John, it's all good, man. I really appreciate you sharing the story. As far as myself, I got into photography. The first camera that I bought was in Iraq in 2003, was a little Canon. And who did I photograph? Bruce Willis, that came and visited our little military base exit area. But I've been doing videography originally since I was a young kid in New York City. I was doing videography, having fun with it. I was part of this after school program. I got a chance to travel to Europe, did some video stuff there, and I got into photography as a business after my wedding photos sucked because initially someone who I told, hey, babe, let's have the dope dude who did our engagement photos come and do it. And he didn't end up doing it. So our wedding photos kind of sucked. And I said, okay, let me get into this business. I could do better than the crap that I saw. So I kind of just got into it from there. But I had some disposable income in the military and I just made it happen, man. And that's where I've been ever since. But let's kind of go into advice that you've had in your photography career. And the question is, best advice given to you as a photographer. And who I'd like to start off with this, but let's go, Daryl. Go ahead and start it off.
The best advice that was given to me as a photographer, it wasn't really anything pertaining to photography. It was more so pertaining to life, and I apply it to photography. And my dad, may he rest in peace, gave me a piece of advice around that time I started getting started. And he told me, what you want to do is live. What you want to do now is live for your 80-year-old self. When you turn 80. You want to look back on your 35-year-old self, and I was 35 at the time. You want to look back at your 35-year-old self, and you want to be proud. You want to be proud. So when you turn 80 and you can no longer hold the camera and pull the gear and set up, you want to look back at your photography career, and you want to be proud. Will you shoot Vogue? Will you shoot Sports Illustrated? Maybe, maybe not. But do it to make yourself proud. And so when that time comes, whenever I have to put down the camera, when I can't do it anymore, when I can't, my hands won't let me do it, my body won't let me do it, when I'm old and feeble or whatever the case may be, I want to look back on these days and I want to be proud. And that's what I shoot for. I shoot to make myself proud. It's not for anyone else. I don't care if you love my photos. I don't care if you hate them. I am happy to do it. I'm proud
Yeah.
to do it. And so when my dad gave me that advice earlier on, that's my driving force. It's just that I'm an introvert by nature. This right here, what we're doing right now, is difficult for me because I'm an introvert. But I've learned through photography that I need to be who the people need me to be, not necessarily who I am. And so, you know, all that advice that my dad gave me, that's just the best advice. So every time I pull up my camera to go shoot, I want to make my customer proud, my client proud, and I want to make myself proud. And in some weird way in the back of my brain, I want to make my dad proud.
It's not a weird way. I think that's excellent. Excellent point there. I see your.
Yeah.
Who wants to jump in on this? Go ahead.
I'll jump in and short and sweet. I learned a lot as again, still being an artist, but more of a calligrapher. And I like analogies. I just kind of operate that way. So, you know, that's okay. Y'all can beat me up over it. But the one I toss out there a lot is be captain of your own boat. And what I mean by that is whether you're, you know, a calligrapher or an artist or a photographer or any type of creative thing, do your thing. So no matter what, the captain, you know, be captain of your own boat. And so a lot of times we're like, well, what do I do? What do I do? And when you start letting other people saying, oh, well, that's too much, walk away, you know, value yourself. But when you start letting people say, well, I'll give you $100 for that, I'm like, you're letting somebody else be captain of your boat. And so captain of your boat has two rules. And, you know, you sail where you need to sail and keep your boat off the rocks, because if you let it, other people will put your boat on the rocks, and then where are you? So that's kind of where I know a lot to chew on. I know, but be captain of your own boat. You know,
you already got the wisdom beard, man. So you're bringing that you bringing that wisdom, telling us stories and analogies, man. Come on, man. We appreciate this, John. We appreciate this. Go ahead and share with us, Jeanette, what best advice that you've received.
Basically, especially as a beginner, not to compare the seeds that I'm planting now to the fruit off of, you know, experienced photographers' trees, I guess. And just to keep shooting. I know I've reached out to Daryl, you, Otis, you know, for advice. I actually didn't even pick up my camera until Verdell said, hey, let's go out. You're going to do this shoot of this mom and this son. So, like I said, failure really stops me. But as long as I remember, not to compare myself and just to keep shooting, that's what's really motivating me.
You know, it's interesting. You being a nurse, you know, I was a nursing major in college at one time. And if you fail at a certain task, that's the difference between oftentimes life and death.
Exactly.
But you're in photography, you're in art. Art, you're supposed to fail. You're supposed to fail your way to success. So I'm glad that you could at least draw those differences at least. But go ahead, Charlie, share with us some of the best advice that you've been given to as a photographer.
All right, well, I got a two-part answer. One external piece of advice that I got, and one internal piece of advice that I gave myself. The external advice was carry your camera with you everywhere, every day. This especially applies to anybody that wants to be a photojournalist. Like when I was, you know, a child, that was my dream. You never know what you're going to see, and if you get that photo and it's good enough, who knows? You might win a Pulitzer. You might get the cover of National Geographic, or you know. There's also nothing wrong with getting the cover of just your local town paper. You know, accolades, no matter how big or small, is always worth the trouble of carrying, you know, 5 to 10 kilograms worth of gear with you every day.
Hey, dude, stop talking metric, man. We're
divided by half.
20 pounds. Oh.
No, it's half
Opposite.
of kilograms. Yeah, 1 kilogram is like 500 grams is a pound. 1 kilogram would be about 2 pounds.
Come on, dude.
Okay.
We're not in England, all right? We're in America, okay, dude?
Hey, we still talking in cameras here, right?
Okay, let's get back. Let's get back to
Okay.
photography. So the best piece of internal advice, you know, that I gave myself was, and this was after a particularly rough time with my business, do not take friends and family as customers. They will take, I don't care how good of a uncle, brother, cousin, best friend that person is, they will try, even acquaintances, not necessarily just friends, but even acquaintances, they will try to take advantage of you. You know, they'll try to pay you in exposure, you know, which is great because my electricity every month, you can pay for that with exposure bucks. You know, so, and if something goes wrong, which is what happened with my particular situation, our photo server in the studio crashed, and every photographer that was working out of the studio, we lost about 5 to 10 years worth of our portfolio, including currently open jobs. And this is before cloud backup solutions. So, we were screwed. And I had an open job on the table for a person I thought was a really good friend of mine. I had delivered about 75% of the photos, 25% was still open in editing processes. And it completely destroyed our friendship, our relationship, to the point where our mutual friends were having to pick sides. There are bars that he couldn't, like bars and nightclubs that he couldn't go into, and bars and nightclubs that I couldn't go into, because like a line in the sand had been drawn, because he was also a business owner. So like a lot of our mutual acquaintances and business contacts and mutual friends got. So yeah, the best piece of advice, especially to somebody that's just starting out in the professional world, do not take people you know personally as customers. I don't care if it's your mother. I mean, I love my mom, but I would never take her on as a customer, because it's not worth destroying my relationship with my mother if something goes wrong on the business side.
I got you. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead, Verdell. Verdell is.
Oh, here y'all go. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Right. Because I'm in the
Still
back.
sound like you're in the bat cave, but
Yeah, no. Hey, but check this out. It's real simple for me, man. The best advice I was getting was, hey, you're decent, but keep working at it. Right. And that was the best advice I got, short and sweet. That's what it was.
Got you. Go ahead, Omer.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I'll kind of focus this in more on the sports photography side of things. The best advice that was given to me for a sports photographer. So I had an issue where every time I put in for a gig or a job, I would get told no. So I was immediately discouraged by that, right? So I'm like, what the hell? I can't get any yeses. Like every time I put in for something, I'm being told no. So I reached out to a well-known sports photographer on my end, and I go, hey man, I'm like, what's the deal? Like, why every time I put in for a job are they telling me no? He's like, how many times you get told no? I'm like, 10 times. He's like, that's it? I'm like, what do you mean that's it? He's like, well then put in another 10. And I'm like, oh. And so it started, that's when it clicked. And then ever since that day, I've never let a no discourage me from what I wanted in life, period. So I've applied that same principle to everything I do in life now. So there's nothing you could tell me. If you tell me no for a car, I'm like, I'll find a way to get it. But as far as photography is concerned, that was like the most critical thing, because as soon as you get that no, immediately inside you start questioning, what are you really doing? Is this really for me? Is this really something I should be even doing? And then once I started getting the no's, and I'm like, you know what, let me get the yes. And next thing you know, the yeses started rolling in. And then when the yeses started coming, I'm like, oh damn. Then they didn't stop. And so I was like, so it started working out in my favor. So I would just say that just stay strong, stay diligent in what you're doing, and just always know that you're gonna have to keep pushing no matter what. No one's gonna give you anything. No one gave me nothing. No one came knocking on my door and said, hey, I got a great job for you. I had to keep applying. I had to keep reaching out. I had to keep running through doors to get what I wanted, and that's the only way it's going to work, as far as that's concerned.
Wow. Okay. So I guess my best advice that I've been given as a photographer, I remember it well. It was Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I was trying to figure out how to do lighting because I didn't know off-camera flash for anything. And so I went to the local photographer store in the BX there. The BX is like the mall that's on the military base. And I asked the guy, hey, can you show me how to do this off-camera flash lighting thing? And that dude told me, guess what's the advice that he told me that was the best advice ever? He told me, go figure that shit out myself. Hey,
No, but that's the truth. That's the truth.
hey, when he told me that, I said, oh man, you know, people could be taught by either an emotionally significant event or repetition. And I had to force myself to say, okay, F this, I will never be embarrassed like this ever again. And also, I'm going to learn and be an absolute when it comes to off-camera flash. And so I went on every resource that there possible out there. I learned everything that there was about light. Well, I don't know everything, but I know a lot regarding lighting and off-camera flash and all of that stuff. And it's the thing that motivates the way how I move with anything nowadays. So, you know, shout out to that gentleman that told me figure that shit out myself. And he's the
He
guy
at least
that
could have told you to read the directions.
You're welcome.
it was literally what I saw it as is, okay, he said, you're a threat and I ain't going to tell you anything. So you got to figure that
A lot
out.
of people think too.
Yeah.
But it's all
You bring up a good point as far as threats, as far as how many of us here in the circle, you know, you went to a photographer that either you admired or respect or that you knew, and you asked them that one question is like, how do you do whatever? And they just clammed up on you, or like you said, have we all experienced a photography?
In that regard, I've actually been extremely lucky. In
What'd
that
you say,
regard, I've
Charlie? Go
actually been, in regards to what John just said, I've been extremely blessed, would be probably a word you could use in this regard. None of the photographers I know personally in my life that I've gone to and asked for help, especially when learning a new aspect of the photographic world. For instance, studio. I was not a studio photographer, and I still do it very rarely. When I first started getting into that, it was about 6 years ago now, when I first left the army here in Germany, a local German photographer that I had literally just met through doing event photography businesses, he took me by the hand. He taught me everything he knew. We ended up becoming not so much business partners, but we worked out of the same studio together. He invited me into the studio that he had and let me work out of it as long as I helped pay the bills. And it's generally been that way in my professional experience when I've had amazing luck. So to answer John, no, we haven't all had that experience. Not every photographer is an egomaniac.
Yeah. I hear Daryl, you're about to say something.
Let me throw a little my little 2 cents in there. So again, I told you I'm an introvert. So me being an introvert, I figured the shit out myself. So I do my best to try and go to YouTube and learn it. But there have been a couple of photographers. None have really shown me anything. Give me a second to explain that. I more so have conversations with photographers and learn through conversation as opposed to me going to them and asking. But I can remember one time, there was this one time, my first camera, professional camera, if you will, it had a pop-up flash on it. And then my second camera didn't have it. And I knew absolutely nothing about off-camera flash. And lo and behold, there was this dude that I saw on Facebook. And he was like, hey, look, I'm getting ready to go to Denman Estates. I'm having this little photo shoot at about 6:30. Please come if you want to learn off-camera flash. I will teach you off-camera flash. I went, and guess who it was?
Otis.
That guy right there.
Otis.
And he opened it up for me. He was the first person to show me off-camera flash. He didn't know me, didn't know who I was. He maybe shared a couple of photos on Facebook, maybe Instagram, but he put it out there, and I showed up. I saw his lights, I saw his setup, and ever since then, man, it just been real cool to me. He was the only person that I ever sought advice from as far as showed me this. And I went out there, showed it to me, and here I am now.
Hey, man.
So appreciate you, my man.
Hey, man, stop all that, man.
Hey, brother,
Hey, go ahead, Verdell. Go ahead, Verdell.
I tried to switch up. Can y'all hear me a little bit better, or is it still like back cave?
It's better now, man.
Nah,
It's better, but it's still that cave. Like it's.
Hey, I'm in the empty. I'm getting ready to move, so I'm in the empty house.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
Hey, but check this out. Hey, Otis. Hey, the same thing you did for him, we all expecting that at some point too. So You know, I know dealing with flash and lighting and things like that, especially, you know, with me being the rookie in this thing, man, I know it's very, very important, especially if I want to get into wedding photography at some point, or doing things where I don't get natural lighting, man. So you could take all that you got up here and pass that along over here, and I'll be grateful to you, man, for it.
Hey, man, look, I'm going to be around for a little bit, so I'm going to put it out there when I'm getting together and do some lighting. And if you want to join me on a shoot, there's no charge. Just I'll put it out there, and you just got to hitch on and ride with it, man. But
Yes,
I think we've got pretty much everything when it comes to best advice that you've been given as a photographer. Let's kind of go into gear. We're not going to be too super techie or whatever, but we're going to talk about probably let's talk about first your most used piece of photography gear. Go ahead. Who wants to start this one?
I'll take this one.
Go ahead, Charlie.
All right. So my, if we're talking glass, my most used piece of gear is an old from like 2002 Nifty 50 from Nikon, 1.8D. This thing, like, especially on Nikon cameras, like with Nikon glass, they warn you all the time that, like, with newer generations of the digital cameras, you can lose sharpness on the older lenses, like the D lenses and the E lenses. I have used this on everything from my F5 film camera to my D810 digital, and it is still like razor sharp. I have taken this to every country I've ever been in. I mean, I love this lens. It's honestly, it's the only thing that's still keeping me on a Nikon cam.
Nikon D50, all right. I think everybody here probably pronounces it as a Nikon, but it's okay if you want to say Nikon. That's cool.
I was going to ask, because our show was like, I ain't never heard of that brand, but that must be new stuff.
Same thing. They call it the same way if you go to Japan. Nikon.
No, they don't. I just got back from Japan. No, they don't.
No, how they refer to it there?
They don't call it Nikon in Japan.
They say Nikon?
Yeah.
Nikon,
okay,
exactly.
Okay.
Nikon.
Like Nissan.
Long
okay,
E.
Okay. All right. Oh, so what about, let's just go around in the circle. Go ahead, Verdell.
I don't have much gear, man. I just got, you know, I shoot with a Canon 80D. I started off with a T4 Rebel, and now I just recently got the 80D. And you know, one of the things, you know, I want to do as far as gear is concerned, man, is Jeanette does a lot of teaching me how to shoot with the 50 and the 85. When I was using, you know, the starter kit, right? So she was telling me the importance of the gear and how to use my lens and when to use them and things like that. So again, what I use is, you know, it varies, right? So one of the things I have learned though is with me doing, so I coach football too as well. So doing action shots and things like that, having a lens that I can zoom helps me out so much better instead of having a fixed lens, right? So yeah, but that's about the bit, you know, the most used pieces of gear that I use. Camera and the lens, that's about it.
Gotcha. Go ahead, Omer.
For me, I would say the Sony A9 is my main body that I'll use. And then as far as lenses, the 70-200 is usually my go-to. 70-200 actually for like weddings, you know, you got to have a 70-200. And then for a lot of sports to shoot, a 70-200 is also good for sports too. So it tends to be the lens that's usually, if I'm like going somewhere, I always make sure that's in the bag. I have a lot of friends that shoot a lot of primes. They love primes. I have quite a few primes as well as myself, but for some reason, just I like the ability to zoom in and out of staying in place, and I can get, you know, 4 completely different looks from one particular place where I'm standing at, you know. So if I want that tight headshot, boom, go to 200. If I want that full body, I can jump out to 70, and I didn't even have to go anywhere. So just for me, for the way I shoot, and I don't have to change as many lenses. The 70-200 is usually my go-to.
All right, go ahead, Jeanette.
Let me just jump in real quick.
Charlie. Go ahead, Charlie.
For Omer and any other wedding shooters that we have here, do you do a 2-body shoot with the 70-200 and the 24-70?
Yeah, yeah. Usually, same thing. Sports or weddings, I'll usually have the 24-70. Well, in this case, I use the Tamron 20. What is it? 28-75, I think it is. So that's what
Yeah.
So that's what I use as my second body, and then with the A7R4, and then the A9, and then 7200. So those are the two that I'll usually have.
And it's at a wedding. That's generally what I run.
Yeah.
Hey, so let me ask a question real quick, man. So when y'all talking about two different bodies, you talking about y'all have two cameras at one time?
Yeah.
Y'all didn't got that good? Oh, okay. So
Sometimes three.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm shooting some sports, I'll have three cameras on me.
So I'm
If you count the GoPro, sometimes I have three as well.
What's up, Daryl? What you were saying?
So I was going to say something about wedding photography. So when I first started out doing weddings, I would say maybe my first 20, 30 or so, I was a 70-200 on the left, 24-70 on the right. And that's what I shot with. But I've kind of gone away from that from weddings. I don't shoot primes. I don't shoot zooms anymore with weddings. I use three lenses when I shoot weddings. I use my 85, my 50, and my 35. Those are the only three I use. I'll use my macro, and that's just only for ring shots. But it took me a minute to kind of move from zooms to primes to do weddings. But once I moved from zooms to primes, it just that 35, man, that is a storytelling lens, man. That lens is amazing for storytelling. And I found like when I shoot my reception, so doing the actual ceremony, I'm 50 and 85. But when it comes to receptions, I am 35 and 50, and mainly that 35 because that thing is I don't know what it's going to take to make that plunge, man, but you'll see that difference when you move from zooms to primes to do weddings. You're going to see that difference. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
But it took me a few years, so I get it if you're not ready. It took me a few years.
Let's hear Jeanette point. What's your most used piece of gear?
So I shoot with the Nikon D850. I really like the 85 millimeter 1.8 right now. When I start making more money, I'll try to get maybe a 1.4 or something.
Ooh, nice. Okay. All right, John, what about you?
I'm going to deviate here just a tad because lenses for me are tools, and so it depends upon what kind of story I want to tell. So, like you were saying, the 35, it tells you a really nice wide story, but then on the 70-200, and you need to go tight, and you zoom that thing into 200. But if I was to pick one lens, and I call this my favorite travel lens, I love the 24-105 f4.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is a beautiful lens.
It's I don't care if you're Canon or Nikon or Nikon or Sony.
Y'all gonna clown me for that now.
No, it's all cool. It's okay. I watch YouTube. I do. There's a guy out there who's like, oh, today we're with Nikon. Anyway, some people, you know what I'm talking about out there. You do. Anyway. I was a long-time Canon shooter. I still have a ton of Canon gear. Been shooting Sony now for years, coming up on 2 years now, and doing the conversion there. But if my advice to anyone out there is getting into photography, or if you don't have a 24-105, if you're traveling and going places and you don't want to be lugging everything, but you want to be able to tell stories, close or wide, 24-105 f4, hands down, is the lens to go with. There's other tools, but I love that particular lens.
I wish they made that in a 2.8. That would be like my only thing.
Yeah, that would be a beautiful selling point for me too.
Yeah, if I had that during sports, that would be amazing, man. But yeah, I agree with you. Just as far as an all-around lens, that 24-105. That's actually the lens I started with, was the 24-105. That's the one. That's the kit lens. Had it on there. It's a great lens.
It's a great lens.
I got you. So I guess the my most used piece of gear, really, it's probably I guess recently I've been using it a whole lot. It's the 105-1.4. And that lens right there, man, that prime lens, it's the heaviest, biggest lens I got.
Bokeh Master.
It's the Bokeh Master, and it's the style of photography that I use a whole lot. But that's with lens. As far as camera body, I've been using a lot. I switched to Sony a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And I've been shooting a lot with the A7 III body, but recently a whole lot with the A7R4. And the file size, the dimension, the the work that I've done, not even retouching the stuff, but the work that pops right out, straight out of camera, it's incredible. It makes me feel like I'm cheating almost in my photography. As far as lighting, the Godox 600 Pro, excellent strobe, excellent lighting gear. I moved away from the Paul C. Buff stuff that I used to use, and now I use just the Godox stuff. So that's the main stuff that I really use as far as what I use the most. But let's kind of go into the opposite of that. What's your least used piece of gear?
Oh, I got that right here. My least piece of gear is my lens baby Spark. Oh, here we go. That's my least piece of used gear. That's right. We can still get crazy little bokeh by playing with a little tube, the focus. But this is my least piece of used gear right here. Lens baby. Lens baby is, don't get me wrong, Lens baby's got some really cool stuff, but it is very much a niche. But yeah, this little thing, you'll learn. You'll learn a lot playing around with it, but I don't use it very much anymore.
Got you. What about you? Let's go around in the circle. Go ahead, Jeanette.
I don't even have enough gear to not.
I remember those days.
Now.
I remember those days.
You're going to have those moments where, well, you said as eventually when you start pulling in more ink, but you start getting that what's that terminology again, y'all?
Gas gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah, gas. It's
bad.
An
addiction. It's an addiction.
Okay.
I had that every night. I'm trying to figure out what y'all talking. I had that every night. No, I'm just playing.
No, you're also gonna get gear jealousy. Try not to let that ruin any friendships.
Yeah, man. Good.
Like Otis got some toys. Otis got some toys that I would love to get my hands on.
Otis looked like if he got a vote back there. If you really look at it, it looks like he turned the lights on. It goes miles and miles and miles back.
Go ahead,
Daryl. He's using a wide angle lens. You know that, right? He's like super close, and it makes that it pushes that background way back.
Way back. Wow. Go ahead, Daryl. Share with us your least used piece of gear.
My least used piece is it's a tie between my 24 and 70 and maybe my 90 macro. I only use that 90 macro for wedding ring shots. That's the only time I use it. My 24/7. Ever since I moved to primes for weddings and events, I don't even use that 24-70. So that used to be my run and gun. That was my traveling lens, that 24-70. But ever since I moved to primes, I would say that 90 macro and my 24-70 are probably my two least used lenses.
Okay. Omer, what's your least used?
Man, where do I start? I got stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
My car is just full of gear I do not use. And I pack it. Every time I go to a shoot, I pack it. It faithfully will go in my bag and it never comes.
Hey, why do we do that, man?
Yeah.
Why do we do that? We pack all
just in case.
Yeah. I would say let's say gimbal. It's the what the hell is that thing called?
Osmo? DJI?
Yeah, the DJI. Yeah, the DJI gimbal. When I bought that thing, man, I was so hyped to use it. I was like, I'm going to use this every time I shoot some video. I'm going to break this thing out. And what ends up happening is when you're shooting video, it doesn't always call for a gimbal. And then half the time, you don't even feel like when you hold that damn thing for 15 minutes, you're like, your arms, you start getting a workout. And you're like, what? And you got an hour more to shoot or 2 hours to shoot. You got to hold that damn gimbal.
Resistance training.
Throw it back down. So it's like it's between us again. I would say the least piece of gear I use are things that have to do with getting work. It never gets used. It just, like I said, it just sits in the car or it just collects dust. I got like 4 or 5. I got a whole pile of the least piece of gear pile right here. It's just all that stuff that I don't use is right here sitting in the pile. So
Go ahead, Verdell.
After hearing Omer talk, I gotta say it's my Zion gimbal as well. I think I paid like $500 for it. Opened it up, it came in a briefcase. I'm like, oh yeah, my video's gonna be immaculate. Man, that thing sits in the closet and collects dust. So I'm in that same boat, man.
I got you. And Charlie.
So You know how everybody kind of goes to the HDR phase when they're doing landscapes and shit?
Yep.
Yeah. So I bought this beautiful carbon fiber tripod that I thought I was going to be using all the time. Even if I wasn't doing HDR, I'd mount.
Yeah.
And you can get decent nature shots without a tripod.
Mhm.
Especially if you have lenses that open up to 2.8 or 1.4 or 1.8. You don't really need the tripod because you can shoot at faster shutter speeds and still get the exposure. So honestly, it's that, you know, for tripod prices, super expensive carbon fiber tripod that I still lug with me when I go traveling to, you know, Japan or back to Ireland or back to America. I still pack that tripod in the suitcase and I still walk around with it all day long and then never break it out and never use it.
Yeah.
I got you. I got you. So as far as me, I would say, so I sold off a whole bunch of Nikon gear. Well, you know, essentially I was going to be making the switch anyways to Sony, but a lot of the gear that I sold off for Nikon was gear that I was not using as far as photography gear. So I sold off, I remember when I sold off my macro lens. I remember when I sold off a whole bunch of other stuff, but there's little lighting stuff that I barely use that I still have. So like my little light meter, I remember when I bought that light meter when I just kind of started. And then I haven't used that light meter in probably 4 or 5 years now. Like there's no need for a light meter, honestly.
Never.
If you can, the way how I shoot anyways, I'm not shooting by math. I'm shooting by eye. And that's what light meters really is used for shooting by math. If you want to make sure your ratios are right and all that stuff, I don't do that.
But even if you shoot by math, most digital cameras nowadays have a light meter built in.
Correct.
You can see the line at the bottom of your viewfinder, and it'll move your exposure based on your trifecta settings. You know, your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed.
Correct. Based on your metering. So if you're doing spot metering, you're doing the entire area metering, your camera will tell you, you know, as far as, hey, if your lighting, et cetera, is good. Let's jump into a little bit regarding originality. Originality in photography. I say a lot of us are, you know, we see something that's pretty or successful. We determine that's the way how people like it. We determine based on the accolades that photo has received. Ooh, I want to create a photo just like that. But I want to hear your point of view regarding originality in photography. What's your determination of it? Where have you seen it? Where have you seen it be a success? Where have you seen it be a failure? And let's try to keep the comment a little short because we're kind of running out of time, y'all. My bad. So go ahead, Charlie. You start off.
Yeah, let me jump in on this. So I don't know how many of the newer photographers have heard this term before. Have you heard of the F64 Club?
Mm-mm.
No.
So back in the analog days, John might be able to jump in on this because, you know, he's ancient. Back in the film days, especially with, you know, Ansel Adams getting like really, really famous for his shots of Yellowstone, there was this concept that you had to have the entire frame sharp. So you maxed out your aperture so that there was no bokeh, there was no. And I still see, so this is more of a lack of originality comment. I still see a lot of photographers, especially when they're just starting out, they kind of follow that mindset. They don't really try to do something new and you know, there's no ingenuity to their style. They see the photos in the galleries, they see the photos on Facebook or a website or a photo book that they picked up at the library or something. And they're like, oh, that's dope. That must be the way we have to do it. And they go out and they do, you know, a nice nature shot or a nice landscape shot or even architecture, and they max out their aperture, and then it's been done. You know, so that and the when I was saying about the least gear used, also the HDR thing, it's been done. You know, so honestly, I feel like, especially when you're new, you kind of need to force yourself to not follow what has come before you. Play with your camera. You know, I don't care how experienced or inexperienced you are. Nobody knows what they can do, like everything they can do with their camera.
Yeah. Okay, Omer, jump in there.
You know, for me, I might take a slightly different take on this. You know, when I first started out, I would see work that I liked, and I would try to emulate it, right? But what would happen is I would try to figure out how they got that shot done, right? So it's like, how did this shot take place? A person running, and maybe they're jumping in air, and I'm like, how do they freeze that motion? So then you start studying and you start learning how to freeze motion, and then you try to get that shot. But then your creativity side will kick in, and then that's how you start getting a more original photo. So I would say it's not a bad thing if you try to emulate something, but I would say definitely don't try to just copy something just for the sake of copying it and trying to reproduce that exact same image. You know, try to bring your originalness to that, you know, whatever you can, your own vision, your own eyeballs to it, to where you can, you know, put that scope on it and give a completely fresh look to it than you did before. So.
Hold on.
I see the timeout.
I think we just got a new word there that we're going to put in the dictionary. Omer, did you just say originalness? Did you just say that?
Yeah, it would be an originalist. Yeah. We'll stick with it. We're going to use that for now.
Hey, I understood what you were saying.
Hey, Omer, I understood you too, but that's so unoriginal because most people just say, "Hey, I'm original," but you like, "I'm an originalist." Like that's a special original.
Yeah,
I like that.
Omer studied at the George Bush School of Learning.
That's right. And I graduated at the Donald Trump School of
Oh my God. Hey, John, jump in that. John, go ahead and jump in that.
Yeah, you've come to the Kofifi part of the photography show today. So, as far as originality, truthfully, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, everybody's emulating everybody. The point is what's your vision? What are you trying to say? And so I like second shooting a lot. And so for me, the challenge is learning another photographer's style. So I'm the best second shooter that they can have. So that way, when they're presenting their work they're selling it for their client, they can't tell the difference between if the lead shot it or me shot it, because I've developed that skill or ability. When it comes to originality, though, in my own personal work in photographing birds, I like personification. I like when I photograph birds, I like photographing a bird in such a way that makes you feel like, oh, I've never seen a bird look at me like that, or they were looking at the camera, or they're being expressive in a certain kind of way and capturing that moment. So that's my originality to my bird work in a way that if somebody can look at that image and feel like, oh, that's a loving moment, or I'm all like the bird's looking at like, what are you looking at? I've done my job. That's my approach to in terms of originality. But
did I hear birds chirping in the background just now?
Yeah, a little bit. But sorry, I'm getting text. I'm trying to turn the darn thing off too.
Birdman. Go ahead, Jeanette.
Creativity is something I feel like I don't have. Again, like nursing, everything is very, this. And so one thing, I'm noticing when I come to shoots, people, I don't ever tell someone I'm new, client that I'm new. But oftentimes they'll show me, their phone. I saw this on Pinterest. I saw this. I want to emulate that, which I'll do. But I always challenge myself within a shoot, at least to push myself to, find something original, something that's not the same as everything else. So I'm still working on that.
Gotcha. So what do y'all recommend that they go for, possible inspiration for originality?
Look at the new and up and comers. Like we have a mutual friend on Facebook, Otis. What's his name? He's that Sony rep guy. He's always
Joey
pushing the Sony gear. Hernandez.
Yeah, Francisco.
Oh,
Francisco. Yeah.
Francisco. Yeah,
so
he's up the road here.
people like him, like new up and comers. They're young. They're hot shots. They have a tendency to push new styles that can change the industry, in my opinion. So if you're looking for inspiration, keep an eye on who's hot because if they're getting published, like Francisco's getting published, then that means they're doing something new, something flashy, something nice. They're doing something right.
And
I'll tell you what.
That's where I go for my inspiration.
I'll tell you what, as far as Jeanette, where you can go if you're looking for some inspiration based on the gear that you have, 500px.com. Yes. And you just input your gear, and it shows you this is what your gear can do. And and then the wheels start turning like, ooh, I could do that. So then how about if I flip it the opposite way? What if I go low and I shoot high? What if I shoot high and go low? And then lighting, there's an infinity amount of ways that you could bend and mold lighting. So it's really, you've got to bend and twist and look at things from different perspectives. And that originality that comes out, it gets your wheels turning, it gets your fingers twitching, right? I see your head shaking, Daryl. Let's talk about originality, Daryl. Will be you, and then we'll go to Verdell last.
Just real quick, I think when I first got started, and even now, I'm Pinterest, I'm Google, I'm Facebook, I am Instagram. I'm trying to be inspired, and even when I have shoots, I'm studying before the shoot, and I got all these screenshots in my phones of things that I want to do. Then I get there, and I do none of them. Because it's like creativity starts to take over, and I go with this plan, and once I do like 5 or 10 shots, and I'm just like, okay, ooh, wow, I didn't see that over there. Ooh, over there. Ooh, stand like this. And it just creativity takes over. Is it original? I don't know. I have no idea if it's original. I just know it's what I like. So I move from trying to be original, and I just try to capture that shot. Whatever it is. If I go through Pinterest and I see somebody else has done it, then cool. But it's no longer about being original, because like someone else already said, there is not a shot that I can do that someone really hadn't done already. Right. I just try my best to capture that shot. I study my gear, I study my lighting, I do my pre-work, I what kind of shoot I'm gonna have, I do my homework, I get them all in my phone, and then when I get there, I try to get that shot. And if it's original, it's original. If it's not, it's not. But at least my client walks away happy.
Got you. And Verdell, you get the last word until I add mine.
It's all good. So originality, I know I want to be original, but I don't want it to be something that boxes me in as a photographer or anybody. I want people to be able to take a photo and not tell that Verdell did it. Like that's where I want to be. So it's kind of hard for me. I mean, it's original and it's authentic because I did it, right? But one of the things I've learned, and thanks to Jeanette and things like that, is sometimes my shots come out looking different just when I put them in Lightroom and I'm just adjusting things, right. And so I'm like, dang, I did that, and it was an original thing. But at the end of the day, when it comes to originality, I really don't want to be boxed in to where someone can pinpoint that, I could tell automatically that Verdell had done that,
Yeah, I got you. I guess with originality, that's where you kind of develop your brand, your style, hey, I like this. Ooh, I could tell that's an Otis shot. That's a Daryl shot. That's a Jeanette shot. That's a John shot. And when you start developing your brand, I mean, unless you're planning on just being a hobbyist, that's part of your business. That's part of your selling point. That's part of your, okay, I'm moving forward, and this is the thing that person is known for. But talking about the thing that a person is known for, let's talk a little bit about the technique in your gear. I started off where technically and typically how I like shooting things is, I will start off looking at a photo without light, because I like shooting off camera flash. I will do the shot without the light, see how it is, see my ambient, see my background, and then I'll add on the light and pepper to taste. That's the way how I cook that way, and so I shoot that way. But let me hear about your technique in your gear. Let's
real quick. Otis can cook too. I'll speak from experience.
All right.
It's good food, man. Good food.
Yeah, he put me live when I was visiting him, and I was like finger licking good.
It's all good, man. Go ahead and anybody jump on this topic with technique in your gear.
I'll jump on this. Part of the reason why I photograph birds is because it keeps your skills sharp. You have to develop several different skill sets when you're photographing birds. Do we control birds? No, birds do what they want. Do we control the lighting on birds? No, birds fly and go wherever they want. Now, can I stand in a particular place in relation to the sun so where if a bird comes up in a particular place, that's how I control my light in that. And so until you learn that, that's a technique. And then you're developing this whole thing of how do I track birds in flight and panning with them and capturing those sharp images. It's all technique. Everyone just thinks is like, oh, I'm going to go buy the latest and greatest and most super expensive gear. Right. You can do that, but you know what will separate an experienced working pro and someone who's got like way too much money is technique. Truthfully, it really is technique. And you don't even have to have super expensive gear to get fabulous shots. You can take gear that is modest and within your means, and then you develop that technique and start producing work that makes people go, wow.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, Jeanette?
Charlie, it looks like you wanted to jump in on that one. Go for
Charlie. Charlie, you want to jump in? Go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, I just wanted to co-sign what John said. Gear is great and all, and yeah, there's some gear that can do things that some gear can't. I just wanted to co-sign, like when I was still doing wildlife and I was down in Africa, a lot of it came down to self-discipline and self-technique. Like I can remember laying in the bush in Kenya, waiting for an animal to come by so I could get a shot. So like, you have to orient yourself to the sun. You have to track your targets. It's military talk there. Sorry. And sometimes like, I mean, there was one day we were laying in the bush for like 6 hours, not moving, just waiting for an animal to turn around so we could get its face in the photo. So yeah, I just wanted to co-sign what John was saying with technique, and then add in the bit about self-discipline.
Okay. Well, was there rain on you there down in Africa?
Was it? Oh, they bless the rains down in Africa. So.
Yes, this part of the show is brought to you by Toto. Does it rain in Africa?
Go ahead, Omar.
Down in Africa.
Actually, I think I got that CD around here somewhere. Give me a moment. I might disappear.
Of course you do.
Omar, go ahead and talk about technique in your gear, man.
So I would say all my technique usually revolves around me being efficient, right? So I want to get in and get out of whatever it is I'm doing, but I want to do it the most efficient way possible. I don't like to waste time, and I don't like to waste people's time. I like to just so I would say learn your gear, but know how to use your gear for whatever you're doing, and then use it properly, and then get out. Like, don't spend your time trying to learn while you're shooting a client, because you're gonna end up screwing around with your settings, trying to figure out the best way to shoot this particular shot, and it's not gonna pay off. So I would say learn everything, build a familiarity with the gear you're using, so you can be really efficient and just get the shots you need and the hell out.
Yeah,
nice. Daryl.
Kind of what he said, there isn't a piece of gear that I got that I've ever bought that I haven't studied extensively before I even bought it. And even when I buy it, there are YouTube videos on the gear. When I bought my A99 II, I listened to, I can't remember, Tony Northrup. He went through an hour and a half on that A99, and I watched every single bit of it. And kind of what he said, look, I have a wife and 3 children. Nobody has been photographed as much as my wife and kids. Is because I'm trying to learn my techniques, so that way when I get on site, I already know how to do it. And the other thing that goes with technique in your gear is going before, like if you're going to have an on-location shoot, get there about 30 to 45 minutes before your client does, and you get those settings right, you get that composition right, you find all those places, so that way the knowledge of your gear and already have studied that scene comes together when your client gets there. If you have a studio shoot, set that stuff up and shoot before your clients get there, so that way when they get there, you're not fumbling around trying to figure out your settings. Of course, you can season the taste, but you don't want to spend 30 minutes taking test shots. That just doesn't. That's just not good.
No.
So
Excellent.
that would be my advice.
Verdell.
Man, y'all just dropping jewels down in here, man. You know, me being a rookie and all, man. That's one thing I will touch on what Omir said, and what Jeanette has been teaching me is being efficient, right? Going in there, doing what you have to do, and getting it done. And you know, me learning, I've been honest with you guys, y'all gonna think I'm crazy, but I've had photo shoots where I came out with about 1,600 photos because the person wanted to take photos and I was learning at the same time, right? And it was nothing to do. But now I'm learning too. And I thank you, Daryl, for this one. Because when you talked about, you know, you've took so many pictures of your wife and things. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna have to use Jeanette as my guinea pig and figure out what we're gonna have to do from that point on. But honestly, man, like I said, I'm still learning, and I was just really holding on to the efficiency that y'all talk about, to the technique, self-discipline, and things like that, man. And I just want to thank y'all for dropping those jewels.
Okay. And we're going to close it off with Jeanette. Talk to us about your technique and your gear.
I don't know. Everyone said it. Y'all making me feel like I'm not as much of a novice as I think, you know. So as far as getting there, you know, early, getting the lighting right, looking for locations like Daryl said, I don't really do much more than that. I do shoot natural lighting. I would love to learn, you know, the off-camera flash and all that. But other than that, y'all said it all.
Okay.
So I would say learn it.
I can point you towards a great place on Creative Live. There's, I think it's like $30. Don Gianetti teaches the foundations of lighting. That's
I'm saving my $30 and I'm gonna bother Otis. That's what I'm finna do.
Some crazy little. $30 of good food with Otis will get you a lot of learning. I will say that.
There you go. Bring sandwiches, man. We gonna shoot. Just bring sandwiches. Charlie, I see you got something to say.
Yeah, I just want to add one more thing since we're talking about technique and gear. And since because I started on film and transitioned to digital as digital came out, I just want to add in, I see a lot of photographers nowadays, they don't even care about their settings in the camera. I don't want to drop any names on the live stream, but I have an acquaintance here in my city in Germany. He continuously, excessively shoots underexposed, and his process is, I'll fix it in post. You know, we're photographers, we're not photoshoppers. You know, Photoshop and Lightroom is a great tool. It's definitely made being a photographer more expedient and, you know, more affordable, because darkroom was, you know, the chemicals that you needed for the darkroom and the paper that you needed for the darkroom was extreme, and the lights you needed for the darkroom, it was extremely expensive. Yeah. But get it right in camera so that, and you know, Otis, you touched on this when we were talking about the most used gear. You have a lens that you use, you know, and your technique and stuff. When it comes out of the camera, you barely have to do anything to it in Lightroom or Photoshop. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. As a photographer, we use the camera to express emotion, to express a scene, to convey a message. And, you know, if you're fixing that, if you're spending 2 hours in Photoshop trying to fix mistakes, you know, that comes back to efficiency that everybody else touched on. Get it right in camera so that your post-processing doesn't take 2 to 3 hours an image.
I got you.
Charlie, when you talk about film, Charlie, how old are you, bro?
I'm only 34, but I started shooting when I was 6.
Yeah.
So, you know, film was still around back in the 90s.
Very much
I got you. Yeah,
very much so.
You know, photography is more than anything a means of capturing that moment in time. During these times that we're at right now, we have some significant social things that's going on. That photography has been, you know, big time, you know, the catalyst of telling that story of whatever that situation is. Whether it be protesting, whether it be, you know, recording a birth, a death, a situation. So I kind of want to bring up two things. Let's talk first thing first. Let me edit this. The first thing that we're going to talk about is social causes in photography. So we're talking about things that's going on right now and how important or what role can photography play in it? And then after we're done talking about that, we could talk about bigotry in photography. So let's go into it. Who wants to jump into this first?
I'll start it off. I've had some issues with, I would say, run-ins more so than anything. While I'm shooting, I would get the Karen or two who decides to tell me that I'm not supposed to be there. I don't, it's not this private property or whatever, and take it upon themselves to be the police chief of the neighborhood or the community or whatever it is where I'm shooting. And when you're with a client, you can't let your inner thoughts always come out. You know what I mean? So I'll just quick story. I'll make it really fast. I'm with the client. I show up to a photo shoot. As we're getting out the car, she approaches us and says, "Hey, you can't park here." And we look around and we're like, "Why?" And then she's like, "Private property." You're like, "You know what, ma'am? I'm only gonna be here an hour. We're about to go shoot. By the time you call a tow truck to come here and get here, we're gonna be gone." But and I've never told this story. I've never even talked about this issue before.
Exclusive. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's exclusive. We're dropping bombs here. But for a reason though. Just because it happened about 6 months ago, and when it happened, I just decided, I didn't want to put the energy out there. I didn't want to feed into it. I didn't want to keep, and then as I see the times changing and things changing and events happening around the world, I start feeling an obligation to tell certain stories and experiences that I've had in the past, and to see if anybody else is related to that. Because at the time, I was worried about hurting business. I was worried about if I speak about racial injustices or if I speak about things that are going on, is that something that's going to hurt my business? And whereas before, where I had a client who was homosexual and inboxed me, and the first thing they said was, "Do you shoot gay couples?" And I'm like, "Is your money green?" I'm like, "I don't care. Like, I don't care who you. You can love who you want to love. You can be who you want to be. I don't care. Like, as long as you pay me the same way as I usually get paid, and everything else is fine. I don't have an issue with who you date and stuff like that. But just to kind of wrap this all up, there are times when you have certain experiences, whether it be racial or whatnot, that kind of pull at you a little bit and make you wonder. It's like, but I would just say I learned from a lot of these situations, and the way we implement ourselves in our business and we try to project ourselves to our clients is as a positive energy. Is we accept everybody. We're not going to do all that discrimination stuff against anybody, unless you are a racist. Then I will clearly discriminate against you. So, but other than that, yeah, man, it's a lot.
I just want to jump in on that.
Go ahead, Charlie.
So when I was back in the States in 2016, I had left Germany because Ma got sick, and you know who got elected. And there were all those protests and anti-protests in New York and Washington, D.C. And as a registered freelance photojournalist, I went up to New York for one of the protests. There was an anti-Trump protest right in front of Trump Tower, and on the other side of the street was the anti-protest from the right wingers. So yeah, you're right. We kind of do have a responsibility to document, but it can be dangerous out there. Like, I mean, both sides were attacking. Like, so basically the anti-protesters were on one pavement, the protesters were on the other pavement, the police were in front of both sides on the street, and then all the journalists, the camera crews for your major televised journalism, your newspaper guys, we were all in the street where the cars drive, and both sides were attacking us. I mean, they were throwing stuff at us. They were calling us names, and it was both sides because they couldn't tell who we were there to represent. I mean, we were there to document, and they didn't know if we were right-wing journalists or if we were left-wing journalists. Like me personally, I don't know if it's relevant. I'm liberal, I'm progressive, or at least I consider myself so. And the liberals didn't know, like they thought maybe I was photographing for Breitbart for all they knew, So yeah, there's a lot of pre-assumptions when they see somebody with a camera, and
Gotcha.
it jumps in.
Gotcha. What about you, John?
Yeah.
Oh, Daryl, you want to go ahead?
I was just well, John can go. I mean, well,
No, go for it, Daryl. Go for it.
I think as a photographer, I'm not going to say we are obligated, but I think that part of the reason we picked up the camera is to tell the story of whatever it means, a senior shoot, a graduation, whatever, is to tell the story. And I think in some ways our communities, they count on us to capture those moments. And so, when the unrest happened here, I went down there and I shot. And I got my footage, and I don't think anybody can tell the story quite like a photojournalist or a photographer. Nobody can tell that story like we can. And so I think we owe it to our communities to do that. Even if you don't share them with the world, at least capture those moments, because in years to come, those things mean something. So go and capture those. And then to kind of jump on the second part of your question, the bigotry in photography, I have this innate ability to not talk. I don't talk. I don't talk. And so I came across a Karen in a place, and as soon as we got out of the car and she saw the light stand, she saw the cheetah stand, she saw the C stand, and she immediately walked up to us and told us that we can't be there. We don't need to be there. Do we have this? Do we have that? I didn't say a word. I just went and shot, got my photos, and I left. I don't look, if you're going to call the cops, call them, but you aren't going to shoo me away. Call them, let them shoo me away, but you aren't going to shoo me away. And that's happened. I want to say that's happened about 5 or 6 times, man. I just don't say anything. If I'm somewhere and somebody walks up to me and asks me if I have a permit, if I have a right to be there, if they are not a staff member of the place that I'm at, then I don't have anything to say to you. I keep it moving. So of course, I experienced the bigotry in photography. I don't respond to it. You can say whatever you want to say over there, but don't get too close to me. But say what you got to say. If you got to call the cops, call them. But I'm going to get my shots, and then after I'm done, I'll either talk to the police or I'll leave like I'm supposed to. Yeah. That's just how I deal with it.
John, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll jump in here because, well, I appreciate it. I think as photographers, it's important we know our local laws and know our rights, and that alone. And as long as we're not trespassing, because we know when we're trespassing sometimes, as long as we're not trespassing and we're in a public space and somebody else has an opinion, it's like, fine, you've got an opinion. You're entitled to it, and at least in a lot of our cases here, that's America. But it's not going to prevent any of us from exercising our right to conduct in as long as we're not hurting anybody, we're tearing up somebody's property, and we're being entrepreneurial, and that's what America is all about. And so again, know your rights, respect other people's property, respect other people's opinion, even if it's not what you would agree with, and then you do you. And if the local authorities show up and then start asking questions, I know of a photographer that was out with a model, and they happened to be photographing on the side of a road, and somebody rolled by, and it was a mixed race kind of situation, and the sheriff rolled up, and somebody called the cops because they thought, well, someone's being abducted or whatnot, and it was like, wow, that is nuts. And so the sheriff come up, asked a few questions, and like, hey, everything's cool, everything's copacetic and stuff. And I'm all like, man, I'm sorry that we got called on this, and someone said something, and it's like, okay, it's good. The cop, the officials rolled on, and they're, the photographer and the model's like, what the hell just happened? And it's people's perceptions and imaginations get carried away, and it's really is unfortunate. Instead of, unless there's somebody definitively getting hurt, hey man, mind your own business.
True. All right, we go Jeanette then Verdell.
I think when it comes to the social issues, like Daryl was saying, we do have an obligation, not only to our communities, I think our families as well, especially with, the social issues that were just happening with the Black Lives Matter, all that. People say, well, why is this happening now? Well, it's been happening, but our history books don't show these things. So for us to capture, even with COVID, people in mass, just capturing, really what's going on, the truth, we have that ability to show future generations, the truth, not just what whoever makes these history books, wants them to know or think and believe. Bigotry, I haven't really experienced that. So I can't really speak on that part though.
Gotcha. And
I can add one more thing in here. If you want to get a good understanding of an early photographer on film, go look at the work of Gordon Parks. Amazing photographer. He was of color, but he told the story. He showed what was life like within his circle and within his community, and what was important to them. And I was unfamiliar with it, but had an opportunity to see his work a year ago up in Fort Worth, and they had a major exhibit at the Ammon Carter. And I thought, wow, this is amazing stuff in the stories that he told. So go look at Gordon Parks. Some great work.
Excellent.
Okay, thank
and
you.
Verdell, you want to add on?
Yeah, just really quickly, man. So last month sometime, if I'm not mistaken, Jeanette and I took our family to Colorado Springs and then to Denver. And I actually got the opportunity to participate and be in the middle of a protest, right? And it was nothing like yours, Charlie, as you mentioned, right, with the throwing of rocks. But I think, me just getting the opportunity to capture those moments as a photographer, right? My very first protest with as intense as these social issues were, I thought it was good. The only thing that I did not like is that everybody had masks on, so I couldn't get the expressions that I really been wanting to get in photography. So I think with that opportunity or my opportunity, if I could take that situation and replay it again, I wish it was happening I wish that it wasn't happening during COVID, because I've seen photographies where you could tell someone's angry and you have their emotions. You get the tears, you can actually feel it. And when you can actually feel it, depending on how you even edit that photo, it makes a black and white film pop so much when you have the emotion or the sadness or the disbelief in it. But I think from a social standpoint of view, all the protesters that I had seen prior to that, they were all like chaotic and the police were doing what they were doing and it was angry. What I got to experience was something totally different. I was surprised to see, and I'll just openly say it, that majority of the people that were out there protesting in Denver were white Americans, right? For Black Lives Matter and that cause. Another thing too is that TV shows us that the police and protesters can't get along. While I was out there for those hours, we didn't have those issues. But not only that, the Denver Broncos was out there protesting, as well as the police, as well as the citizens in Denver. So shout out to all of them for one, but it was a great experience to have.
Awesome.
Just,
As far go ahead, Charlie.
Jump in real quick. You were saying like you wish you could have shot the protest without the COVID masks. But actually, that could make your photo so much more powerful, the COVID mask, because it's like, despite the pandemic, despite the social distancing, the inequality, the injustice of our current climate is so bad that they risk public health issues to make a statement. So, you take that photo of a group of protesters and they've all got their COVID masks on their face. And it's like, look, despite the public health risk, we still have to go out there. We still have to make our statement. And that can actually, so yeah, you might not get the facial expressions you want, but you get a different statement. You get a different expression. And that's like a group expression. So honestly, like I kind of like, and I would love to see the photos if you wouldn't mind sharing them with me. We could talk offline after the stream. I would love to see those photos, because that's a completely different but equally powerful message with the COVID masks.
Excellent. Hey, I had a chance to do a few protests in my time. So I did photography a few years ago at Austin Peay University, and this is the time of the death of Michael Brown. And I got a chance to photograph young men and women, black and white, protesting at that protest. And recently, the protest that happened here in San Antonio, I got a large group of people that are protesting the anti-police brutality protests. I got a chance to do that. This is before everyone mandated masks and everything like that. And doing those portraits of those individuals is a powerful thing. And you almost want to create a photo that could draw such emotion, it could almost bring you to tears. And this is something that I strive with, you know. As far as the bigotry in photography, it's not just the photography part of things, but it's also the social media side of things as well. So you go on some of these forums, you go on some of these places, and some of these folks say some wild stuff on there simply because, they're online and hey, they could get away with it. I really think, and I would try to implore to anyone who's looking at our discussion and anyone who is encouraged to speak out against BS, racism, or sexism, or homophobia, or whatever, speak out about it. Don't be fearful of your business is going to get hurt because you're doing the right thing. As Omer said, he was fearful about that. And you know what I decided? I decided to stop the fear of someone not respecting my point of view when it comes to doing the right thing, and just do the right thing. And that's just kind of the way how I do things as far as business and everything like that. And guys, you know, we flew through almost 90 minutes of discussion. I think this has been a dope thing. This is something that I want to do more and more with whoever else wants to come on and join on and just talk and, you know what I'm saying, just spend some time, burn some time away during this COVID craziness that we're going through. And, you know, of course, in parting, I want to have each one of y'all just put out your business line. If you've got a website that you want people to follow you or whatever, go ahead and share that information so that everybody can check it out. But before we do that, let's pull up some of the comments that I did not see until now from the entirety of our discussion. So we have one from Miss Angel Jackson. She said, love the panel, Otis. Well, thank you very much, Angel. We've got Kalechi. She said, this is dope.
This is dope.
I don't know. I've never seen photographers get together like this and just talk, you know, things that are not just about photography, but about social stuff as well. So I think this is a pretty dope thing. So I want to do some more of this. Let's see. She's got another thing. She said, Angel said, hey, what did she say? Come on now. What's wrong with this computer? Give me a second, y'all. Maybe I'm getting old or something.
And I forgot
like
people watching this.
People are watching this, man. People are enjoying this discussion. And I don't know what's going on. It looks like I can't click on any of the comments, but that's unimportant right now. Let's just, we can't even hide her comment. But anyways, I had a great time talking. Y'all go ahead and share your social media handles or whatever it is that you got going on. Go ahead, Charlie, you first.
All right, I can be found on Facebook or Instagram at Failing Photos 86. Birth year 86 is the best.
Just a baby.
I'm actually currently closed for business as a wedding and event photographer. Due to COVID, I will not reopen until we get the all clear. I know other businesses in Germany and abroad are starting to reopen, but I'm thinking of, you know, my models and my customers and myself as well, and remaining closed. But you are more than welcome to hit me up online. You can also reach me at failingphotos86@gmail.com for any customer inquiries. And all my contact information is on my Facebook site as well.
Awesome. Next. That's you, Verdell.
Oh, all right. My bad. I was waiting for you to call somebody's name. Hey, first of all, thank you, Otis, and everybody, man. I appreciate it. It was a learning experience for me all the way around, right? And it actually leaves me, I'm inspired to actually pick the camera up, man, and go out and just doing some things, you know, as soon as opportunity comes again. So thank y'all so much, man. But, you know, people can find me on Facebook. It's Heaven's Very Own Photography. Also on Instagram, it's HVO. I just shortened it, photography there as well. So again, that's where y'all can find me as far as my business and things are concerned. Thanks.
All right.
You can find me at pixo2.com. That's my website. You can also find me on Instagram at Powerful Dreams. That is my main Instagram account. So give me a look, check me out. If you're in the Vegas area, if you want to hire me for business, hit me up. We are open. If you just want to hang out and maybe shoot the breeze and take some photos or whatever, hit me up. I might be available to do that too. So pretty easygoing guy. Or if you just want to pick my brain, again, feel free to hit me up. You wouldn't be the first, and I'm sure you won't be the last. So
okay, Jeanette.
Okay, yes, thanks for having me here as well. Facebook, Instagram, you can find me, JNet Photography. Pretty simple. Yes.
All right, John.
Cool. Well, again, my name's John Signs. I'm with Life Signs Photography. My website is lifesigns.photography on the web, but can also be found on Facebook. And I have an Instagram presence under Life Signs or Life Signs Photo. I got a couple of different pages there. I throw up for branding and personal stuff and then serious stuff. But thank you for hosting me or letting me in here, Otis. But stellar group of people. Nice to meet everyone here. Some I've never met before, and but again, I enjoyed this immensely. Thank you.
All right, Daryl.
First, just want to show my gratitude, man. I'm always appreciative when people want to pick my brain or even talk with me. So, man, I appreciate you for even inviting me onto this. My personal, Daryl E. Edwards, that's my personal Facebook. If you want to catch my website, it's jnkphotography.org. Or my Instagram,
I like your stuff, bro.
It's JNK Photography 1 on Instagram. Those are the ways that you can catch me, and even on Facebook, I'm on there as JNP as well. So those are the ways you can catch me on social media.
That's dope. And of course, if y'all want to catch me, man, I'm on Wide Aperture Media. I'm on this live streaming thing. I do LEADTV, and I'm just Otis. I think I'm the only Otis Toussaint that does photography in all of the world. So I'll take it at that. But hey, man, it's been a pleasure just rocking it with y'all, man. This has been dope, man.
Can I say something real quick?
What's up, man?
Hey, Jeanette, what's your brand again? No, I'm just messing with you.
Hey, man. Stop that, man. Stop that. You crazy, man. You crazy. Hey, it's been a pleasure working with y'all, man. Hey, hang out in the broadcast room. We're going to chat a little bit, all right?
Hey, I'm going to get at y'all.
Thanks for having me, Otis. I appreciate it.
Hey,
bro.
no problem. No problem. Y'all take it easy. Hang out in the broadcast room. Later, y'all.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Wait, it doesn't even look like I could close this whole thing. So I got to, is it my whole computer that's going crazy? Hold on. Hey, man, I'm going to have to just shut this whole computer down. I got to do something to turn this off. I'm going to turn the whole computer off. I'll catch y'all in a little bit, all right? In the chat, in the group chat. All right, y'all.
In the group chat or here?
Are you coming back here? Group chat. All right.
Group chat. Sounds good. All right, guys.
All right.
Peace.